Okay, can you see me? Can you see the presentation?
We can see you,
No.
but not the presentation.
But you can see me,
There,
right?
there, see Robert.
Yeah, we see you.
Okay, hang on.
What?
Let me do this. Do this.
I like your background there, Robert.
Yeah, thank you. Try that one.
Oh, something's happening. Got it.
Okay.
Oh, cool. You can see it. Good, good. Well, I'll introduce you. Myself, my name's Robert Hughes. I've been a beekeeper for, oh God. I was thinking of that, Tom, when you were talking. I think it's 54 years now. I'm probably longer than most of you guys have been alive. But anyway, yeah. And, lots changed since I started in the 60s with bees. And, the way we have bees, all the challenges we have, a lot of that has changed. So the good part is that you've got a good club here in Midwestern. And for all of you new beekeepers, this is basically the best way to start beekeeping is find an organization that will support you. Because as I think Phil mentioned earlier, you have bee havers and beekeepers. Bee havers throw bees in a box and tend to forget about them. And there's a little more maintenance than there used to be. But beekeepers, they attend the meetings. If they can't attend the meetings, at least read the newsletters because those are very important to tell you what to do when. And for a lot of folks that like to go on the internet, that's fine. But you got to realize a lot of those people are in California, Florida, Seattle. Their seasons are different than ours. So it's very important to develop a relationship or at least know some beekeepers, from Midwestern. They're very helpful. So we're going to go through equipment basics. Let's see if I can change that. Okay, so if you're going to be a new beekeeper and you're going to say, okay, what do I need? I got my bees, or I'm going to get my bees. And then what are the areas that I need to at least have the basics? I divided into 3 areas, basically woodware, software, and hardware. Kind of sound like a computer guy, don't we? The woodware, that includes the hive and most of the components within the hive. The woodware is what you have for your bees. That's their home and that's their domain and that's where they live. And that's basically, we in the United States, we make that out of knotty pine. Some make it out of cedar, but it's just basically a box and it's mostly wood. The software, what we call that is what protects the beekeeper. Now, that can be your veil, your gloves, your helmet, your suit, your jacket, but it's always good if you're a new beekeeper to basically have some protective clothing. Now, what I advise folks when they buy like a suit is if sometimes in a couple, the lady wants to run it or the guy wants to run it, but if you're, let's say, medium and your husband's large, I would get all large suits in case so he can wear the suit too. Basically, it just saves you a little bit. Some folks get a suit for each, but a lot of times, just to let you guys know, us beekeepers are a lonely lot. So if you're going to get into beekeeping, the possibility of your spouse helping you or other family members, at least in my experience, has been remote. So they'll help you when you really need it. But you will always have friends wanting to come look at your beehive. So it's always good to have something that makes them feel protected. The last part is hardware. For a beginning beekeeper, that's pretty simple. All you really need is a smoker and a bee tool. Now, we've got a lot of other hardware that we use, but basically that is what you need. And that's basically the 3 areas that you need to start out beekeeping. Let's do the next one here. See what we got. This is a picture of it. Basically, you see a beekeeper here with her suit on and basically her veil and her helmet and her gloves. And then you see the beehive. This is the typical size of the beehive after it grows. Now, how you add to the beehives and everything else as they expand the population, you add boxes. There's your smoker at the top, and there's a little book for your fine reading at night. And then here's a cleaning excluder. And down at the ground, you see a bee tool. So I thought this would show you a picture of basically the equipment you need. Now, let's go through what a beehive actually is composed of. This is real simple and straightforward. That's why I like it. So we'll start at the top. Basically, you have the top cover, followed by the inner cover, followed by a super. Now, a super is basically a box, but it's usually not as big as a hive body. A hive body is what we call a deep super or a hive body, or we call the mediums, which we call supers. We also have shallows, but the bottom line is the box here on this right here is basically for you, for the beekeeper to take after they have surplus honey, because bees are hoarding insects. So the best thing about these Western European bees we have is they don't know when to quit getting honey, so they get extra, and that's what we take advantage of on a good year, and that's how come we're able to harvest honey, and it works really well for us. Here's a queen excluder. We'll talk about that. That can be a item some beekeepers love, some beekeepers don't. It just depends on the beekeeper, but I recommend them. Then you got the hive body. This is where all those pictures you saw that Tom showed us with the queen cells and the brood, as he was explaining, that's down here in the hive body. So that's where a lot of your bees, that's their home. That's where they live. And then you got the bottom board, and just what it is, bottom board. And that's where the bees come in and out. So those are the main components of a hive. So here's a picture of it. When you get a hive, you got this, what the top looks like. You got the two supers here, which are mediums. They're smaller. And then you got the two hive bodies that are deeps, which means they're a little taller. You got the bottom board and then the little introducer. And I want to make a comment about this, and I'll repeat it later. But I get calls in May from beekeepers that use these introducers and forget to take them off, because we recommend when you get it like a packaged bees or a new colony, you put this on to reduce the entrance so that the bully bees that happen to be living in the area don't come by and try to beat up your bees and steal their honey or just cause havoc. So we recommend that, but I do not recommend the 1-inch opening. I do say the 5-inch opening, because if it gets hot, the restricted airflow will cause your colony to collapse. And I see that happen every spring. They're going great, but they got that little 1-inch gap on there, and then they forget to take off the introducer, and then here a month later, boom, all the bees are dead. So we'll talk about that more. I think that's an easy fix, but it's just something that happens, and it's easy to forget stuff because you guys have families, jobs, responsibilities. Life gets in the way. So, I can't tell how many beekeepers blink their eyes. Robert, I can't believe this. I haven't checked my bees in a month or 2 months, and yeah, you get busy. So I understand that. Okay, this is a blowout of the hive. So if you're getting a beehive, basically you want the top here. This is what the top looks like. There's the inner cover. We'll talk about this inner cover because it has many purposes, and I think they're very important purposes. And then you've got the hive body with the frames in it, and then you got the bottom board with the introducer on the front. So basically, when you get your bees and you're ready to go, this is how you will start. This will be the basic woodware you will start with to give them a home. Okay, let's talk about hive tops. Now, the hive tops for most of us beekeepers as we start will be the tin covered top you see here at the top. And it's called a telescoping top, and it hangs down on the sides. Now, the one below it is just wood, but it's a migratory cover. Now, most cases, basically commercial guys like the migratory covers. That's what they use. Most of us hobbyists that have bees, we like this telescoping top. And remember, guys, you won't read this anywhere, but everyone will tell you, we're in Missouri and Kansas, we're in the Midwest, put a rock on top of this, no matter what. So just to let you know, if you have several beehives and you're checking them, you're going to, at least I do, if I have them and I'm going down the line, oh my gosh, I need to put a soup on this one in about a week. Oh, this one, hey, I need to check. I'm going to make sure that queen's good. And this one, and I'm going to come back later, okay? You're going to forget which hive you want to do that to, or you're going to check the wrong one. And I used to believe my memory was a lot better than it is. So here's what I do, is I have to put a rock on each one of these hives that I have just to keep the lid on so the wind doesn't blow it off or anything else. And if I've got a hive I got to come back to later and do something with, I usually stick a piece of wood by the rock. from underneath the rock, so I know. So kind of like a caveman thing, or they call it a Bigfoot thing. You leave stones around and tell you what you need to do. So I like doing something simple. And as you guys get into beekeeping, the simpler you make this, the easier you make this, the more you'll enjoy it. So I would recommend, folks, if you get these tops here, that you basically put a rock on there or a brick. And you know, some bees, I go up there. If I have to do something later, I turn the brick on its side. I mean, just little things to help your memories. You know, it might be Alzheimer's starting to eat at me. I don't know, but I used to think I could remember everything. But I've got several bee yards, and it's just amazing how fast you forget. So anyway, something else I want to tell you guys is very important about your tops that I think every new beekeeper can really take an advantage of. This tin here basically can be to your advantage, because when you take that off the hive and you put it on the ground, you put the tin side on the dirt. And if you're checking them, there's weeds, there's mud, there's moisture on the ground, there's dirt. Put the tin side down, flip it up, flip your top upside down, because that way, as you dig through your boxes, because sometimes you got to dig down in there to make sure the queen's laying, or you want to check something out. When you take each box off that stack, you put it crossways across this telescoping top. That will keep it clean, keeps it off the ground, and also allows you to put it back on, and you're not dragging any debris into the hive. And if you look at that, let's say I stuck that and I had a bunch of mud on it, who cares? Once I put the top back on, that's on the outside. Next rain, we'll wash it right off. So works pretty good. Here's the inner cover. Now, that goes directly underneath the telescoping top, and it lays flat against the top of the hive. Between this are the bees. Between this inner cover are the bees. So if you look at this one, it's got a little notch in it. Some have notches, some don't. That helps your airflow. And then if you look in the middle, there's a little hole. And what that does is that creates a dead air space between the telescoping top and the bees. And it gives them a little insulation. But I'll tell you something, guys. These inner covers, I use them because if you just put that telescoping top on that hive, like Tom said, they like to fill up those little cracks with propolis. They will glue that telescoping top on so hard, Hercules can't get it off, okay? So you don't want to go up to your hive and have to go try to pull that top off, because you want to get in there, you want to be gentle, you want to be fast. So these are important just for that reason. So, and you don't believe me, just don't use them and see how hard some of those tops are to get off. So it just makes it easier for everybody, you and the bees and everything else. Hey guys, if you got questions, let me know, so I don't hesitate. And if I don't read the notes, someone yell at me.
Yeah, real quick, Robert. We have a question from Chris. In this area, do you recommend a screen bottom board or a solid bottom board? Do you think more appropriate?
Now I like my screens, but I've got both. And I'll tell you, I was doing one of these presentations. I think it was you guys. And after the presentations, I had pictures of my hives in there. And someone said, "Hey, Robert, I know a good place where you can buy new beehives." And I started laughing because my hives had gotten little, basically, they don't look as premier as they used to. But as far as a screen bottom board, they're good. I think if I was a new beekeeper, I'd probably get one. They're about $5 or $6 more than a solid. Basically, over the last decade, they've been real popular, and I've noticed their popularity isn't quite as much as it was, and but they're still good. And I'll get down to those screen bottom boards here. I've got that coming up, so I'll talk a little more about that. But that's a good question. That's a good question. And just to let you guys know, your new beekeepers, I had a person in my shop that said he stopped going to the beekeeping meetings because all they did was make him mad. And I said, well, how did they make you mad? Well, no one can give me a straight answer, so I stopped going. And I thought, really? I said, this is beekeeping, bud. Basically, what he's referring to is, and what we say, if you ask 5 beekeepers the same question, you're going to get 5 different answers. And that is very true. And they're all right. because how to explain that is beekeeping is kind of an art form. And what works for you may not work for another beekeeper. And if you want to see beekeepers get in an argument, get a bunch of them that have been in it this my age. I've tried to avoid this, to get real narrow-minded and opinionated, because it's easy to do. And we got some very successful beekeepers that just handle their bees just the opposite of the other one. And I'll tell you a story. When I was 9 years old, I started keeping bees. I had 2 beekeepers that were my mentors. And the hardest thing I ever did was try to keep from getting yelled at by them, because one beekeeper had me wear all my suit, my gloves, dress up. He was a big guy on just how everything was done on a hive. And the other beekeeper was this opposite. He didn't believe in wearing, the only thing he believed in wearing was a veil, and you didn't do all that garb, put it on, and he was anti. And they both been beekeepers for over 40 years. So I'd always dress up in my suit in front of the wrong one. He'd yell at me, or I wouldn't put my suit on. The other one would yell at me. And so, guys, it's just what's best for you. And as a new beekeeper, I tell you, get the suits, get what you need to feel safe. Because if you get intimidated by your bees, you're not going to take care of them like you should. And then later on, if you decide, hey, I don't need my suit every time, then you're always going to have friends or someone wanting to look at your bees. And it's very good to have them suited up so they feel safe, so they enjoy the experience. So, and I'll tell you, yeah, when you pull out a frame that has 3,000 bees hanging on it, and they've never seen bees before, been there, they need that suit on to keep the blood pressure from getting too high. So I always consider that a good thing. Okay, so let's go to the hive bodies. This is where the bees live, and this is just a frame. There's usually 10 frames in them. You got 2 types, 8 frame and 10 frame. So folks ask me, which size should I get? And I always recommend 10 frame. And the reason, 8 frame, I'd say, is 1% of the bee supplies out there. 10 frames, the other 99%. The main reason folks want the smaller ones is because they're heavy, but in all honesty, you do not carry these hive bodies. Usually when I set them down, I don't move them. And you do the supers, but that's the boxes on top. So if you're going to run through and you're going to get your bees, and I would get 10 frame. And here's another reason why. If your friend has bees and then one day he calls you up, hey man, I'm moving, I got a new job, will you take my bees? If he's got 10 frame and you got 10 frame, everything works. And also, if you decide to retire to beekeeping someday, your bee supplies will be more compatible with everything. It just makes it easier. So I think that's why 10 frame is basically the preferred choice. It wins 99% of the time anyway, but hey, we're beekeepers. So like I said, I'll say one thing about beekeepers. I do not think there's any 2 beekeepers in the United States today or ever that does everything the same in their bee yard. It just doesn't exist. We all do things a little differently than someone else. So, and I think that's the beauty of beekeeping, guys. For all you new guys, beekeeping is a total blast, man. It is fun. I tell you, it's hard on us sometimes, and we need our bee clubs to help us out. But man, I tell you what, it's a lot of fun to get even if you don't get honey. What I enjoy about my bees, it's not extracting the honey, guys. That's my worst thing about my beekeeping is extracting honey. Everything else is a joy. That's hard, or at least it's hard to me. Now, when you're a new beekeeper, that's everything. But most of the guys here in this club volunteer their time, and they just love bees, and you just get it's just something that's in your blood. So anyway, and that's why we're here. We're here to help you and make your experience good. Okay, on to the mediums. Now, this is basically your supers, and the only difference between a hive and a super is the size of the box. And the reason these are smaller is because those hives can weigh up to 90 pounds full of honey, those deeps. These will weigh 40, 45. And I'll tell you guys what, if you don't want to be Mr. Chiropractor's best friend, it's good to have these smaller boxes. And that's kind of what I do. I like the mediums. And it's just easier for you to take the honey off and for you to handle it. So that's the reason why we use mediums. Does it help the bees? Bees don't care, guys. It's us. And if you were a commercial beekeeper, well, they use forklifts and tools. They're all deeps. Commercial beekeepers, most of them, almost all of them, do not use mediums because they like to keep their inventory kind of the same. So that's the difference between mediums and deeps. But these are perfect. This is the perfect size, and it's heavy enough, guys. And it's just a good size box for honey. Wood frames, okay. We got 10 frames in a hive. I think you guys saw that in the picture. And there's 4 pieces to them, 2 sides, a top and a bottom. And this shows you the grooved. This is called the grooved one. We've got wedge boards, we've got variations, but this is really, I think, a good example of what a frame looks like. And basically it's just a wood frame that goes around a foundation, which is a plastic insert that goes inside for the bees to draw out the comb. So this is really popular. We have wood frames. We also have plastic frames. Now, these have come a long way over the last 20 years. We used to break the ears off, and we used to have a lot of other stuff happen to them. They're getting better, but it's real easy with plastic frames. You don't have to assemble them, not to put them together. You just bam, 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 drop them in the hive. And if you look here, the foundation here in the middle, where they lay their eggs, they put their pollen, they put their nectar, that is already on a frame. So you don't have to put anything together, snap anything. It's all one piece and you drop it in. I'd say from what I see out there, probably 90% plus of all the frames out there are the wood frames. This is about 10%, I'd say. It's growing though. As we get younger and younger beekeepers coming in, they like to just drop the frames in there. There's also some stigma, like I said, every beekeeper is different, that they like the wooden frames with the plastic inserts more than they like the plastic frames. And if I had to say, I'd say I agree with that. But the bottom line is they pretty much, these are good frames too. And it's good, it's a choice. Now, one thing that's important is having your foundation. And this is basically the plastic piece that snaps in the frame. And when Tom was showing you all those pictures, that's what they were drawing their comb out of. Basically, this is a pattern for them to draw their comb. They'll draw it out about an inch on each side. And then that's where they put their honey, their pollen, their babies. One cell can do many things. So you've got about thousands of cells on these. And one day it'll be a baby bee. Then they'll fill it with honey. Then they'll fill it with pollen, or they'll mix the honey and pollen together. So these foundations are where everything happens. Now, this is plastic wax coated. So if you do get the plastic foundation, which is 99% of the market out there, this is what you want. You want wax coated. If it's just a piece of plastic that's not wax coated, the bees are very reluctant to draw it out because they feel with their feet and they know that there's wax on there. So they'll use their mandibles and they create wax and they can build it out. But if they see just plastic and it feels that way, they don't really build it out that good. So it's always good to have wax coated. Makes your life simpler. It comes in yellow, it comes in black, it comes in white. Now, some folks like the black foundation for their hives. It's because they say you can see the eggs in the bottom, which is true to an extent. But one thing new beekeepers need to know is that your comb, once the wax foundation comes out and they draw it out, it's crystal white. And then basically, after a while, it turns into an off-white, brown, light brown, dark brown, then black. And the reason it turns black is because as the baby bees hatch, basically that when they were in there, they have a cocoon that darkens the beeswax. Does black comb hurt? No, black comb is okay. But I tell folks you can buy the black foundation, that's fine. It costs the same as any other foundation, but your comb's going to turn black in about a year or two anyway, so it's not a big deal. Now we call this thin surplus. It's 100% beeswax. If you want to say, hey, I'd like to do comb honey, this is what you use to do comb honey. It's really thin. You put it in your frame and it gives them a pattern so they can draw it out. So that works really well on a lot of your bees if you want to do comb honey. So it's called thin surplus. And then you got the wired foundation. And, guys, when I first started, oh my gosh, 50 years ago, this is all we had. And basically they've improved it a lot. And now we've kind of moved into a situation where we got the wax, the coated plastic, which I think is much superior. Because with the wax coated plastic, if let's say you get drone comb or wax moth gets in there or something bad, you can scrape it with your bee tool, put it back in, the bees will draw it out. If this gets messed up here, you got to buy a new foundation. You got to buy a new piece of wax with wires. And the reason the wires is in here is to reinforce it. So you put this in your frame, and it'd be a different frame, a wedge board frame, a lot more work. And we do sell this stuff, but it's probably 2% of the foundation, maybe 1% of the foundation we sell. And it's because you can snap into plastic stuff and it's good. Where this takes a little more work. And most of my customers that get this, they're over 70. You know, that's just what they've always used. So it's kind of cool. But I just wanted to show that to you guys. You got choices. And here's basically assembled frame with the foundation, what it looks like. Okay, now we're going to the bottom board. And that's the question that came up earlier. Here's what a bottom board looks like. It's solid. And they're pretty much, they're just good pieces of wood. If you paint them and get them set up, they last forever. And there's the entrance reducer in the front. Notice the little hole there is pointing up instead of down, and it's a 1-inch hole, which I don't recommend we use. We're in Kansas, not Canada, so you should use a 5-inch hole. And I tell my new beekeepers, if you got to use that little 1-inch hole there on your bees, they're dead anyway, because they should be able to protect a 5-inch opening no matter how weak they are. And the reason I do that is just because there's a lot of beekeepers out there, they get busy with life and they leave it in, and you have a hot day and you lose your bees. So that's just why I say that. Okay. How much time do I have? Do I have about, Phil?
We're getting fairly close on time. I'd had you scheduled
Okay, here's you got
up at 9:15, but we're running about 10 minutes late. So if you got something you need to add on there, time.
Yeah, I got a few things. I'll go through them real fast. Here's a screen bottom board. Guys, here's what I tell you. This is removable, and that's why it's popular. And I think they're good. They're very viable. And if I was doing bees, because of the varroa mites and the varroa, it's a passive control of the mites. And I would use a screen bottom board. So they're both good. Basically, the reason I have so many solids is because I've had them for a long time. But that's your screen bottom board. Here's the entrance reducer. This shows you the bigger entrance and then the smaller entrance. Now, the bigger one's what I recommend we use just for safety concerns. If your bees are having issues getting robbed, you can put on a 1-inch, but please only keep it on for a day or two and then put on the wider one, just for safety. For the beekeepers that have done this, know what you're doing, okay, that's fine. You can use a little 1-inch, but at the same time, if you're new and your life is busy, play it safe. Here's basically a nuke box. Guys, this is basically half a hive. I call it half a hive. This is so easy. If you catch swarms or you get swarm calls, you can go out there, and this has got a top and a bottom, but I just wanted you guys to know that you can catch swarms with it. You can do splits with it. And guys, when you get older, man, that smaller box is a heck of a lot easier to lug around than a whole hive. So I'm a big nuke box guy. I've gotten worse as I've gotten older because it just, if someone has a swarm call, run out there with it, dump the swarm in there, you're going. So it's a half a hive, and that's a good tool to have. Bee suits. We got dozens of different bee suits that come in all sizes. You can take the bee suit. Here's one that's all one piece. Then you got jackets. Some folks prefer jackets. A lot of folks will buy a suit and they'll come back and say, hey, I want a jacket. This is vented, which means it's cooler. Got gloves. These are goat skin gloves. And we also got cow skin gloves. A lot of different gloves. It's always good to have this. As Tom said, once they sting you on your hands, I'd go get gloves. This is a bee helmet you use for your veil. And I just want to show you that. And then here we got different kinds of veils. We got this is one type of veil. And then here's the other square veils. You got the string. And guys, here's what I'm saying. If you're new in beekeeping and you don't know where to spend your money, I would definitely spend money on protective clothing, veils and helmets. Even though with the smoker and stuff, the bees aren't too agitated. It's just good to feel safe. It'll help you work your bees. And it's just because I have folks that say they can talk to the bees won't sting them. And well, once your bees grow and they get more powerful in the summer, they sometimes become a little more aggressive. Here's your basic smoker. That's really good. I recommend these smokers here with the guard so you don't brand yourself, and also there's a hook there so you can hang it on the side of your hive. So that works really, really well. And it's only, they're only about $5 more. So if you're going to be a beekeeper for a while, that's what I do. I just keep it, I did something that, now I don't bend over. And guys, in the past, I've stepped on my stupid smoker because I set it on the ground and I was looking at my frames, looking for larvae, and I forget it's down there. So that keeps you from stepping on it. Here's just another smoker, just a lot of varieties. A lot of folks use smoker fuel, which is these pellets. You can use burlap, you can use leaves, you can use pine needles, but keeping your smoker burning sometimes can be an art form in itself. Here's a hive tool, and guys, this is a hive tool with a hook. And bottom line, out of the last 35 years, this is the best invention we've seen in beekeeping right there. That little hook helps you remove those frames and lift them. If you come here, you got this thing. This is a basic bee tool. It's very good, but I busted the ends of my hives off because I was impatient. I was prying many, many times. That hook allows you to remove the frames easily and fast, and you don't damage stuff. So, but that's still a good hive tool. Bee brush, you use that to get the bees off. Got a frame lifter. Some folks like these because you can grab the frame and pull it out. And there's a couple styles. Here's another style. I like the first style better. Here's a mouse guard. When winter comes, you don't want the mice to get in, so you throw a mouse guard on there. And this is a steel mouse guard. It's got little holes there where you can put thumbtacks, and it's kind of like an interest reducer, but it's a mouse guard. And here's a queen excluders. And guys, I've got pet peeves here. I use the steel queen excluder because it's cheaper than the wood bound one, and it lasts forever. And all you're trying to do is put this between the hive body where the bees live, and we're going to put the honey, because you don't want the queen going up there laying eggs. And I'm a big believer in them, and they don't hurt you that much. Some folks say they slow down the honey production, and I really haven't seen that much, and I don't care, because if I'm pulling my honey off, I don't want to have 3 or 4 hives. When I pull off the supers, I got eggs and larvae in there, or a queen. I don't need to deal with that. When I pull my supers, I want to make sure it's just honey up there. So, because if you get that brood in there, what's Tom say? You got to wait 21 days for it to hatch, and then you can pull it off. And you don't want to do that with honey production. Then here's a wood bound one. Those cost a lot more, but they don't last as long because of the wood. So I'd always get the cheaper one. Then you got the frame perch. Put that on the side of your hive. That's really good for you. If you don't want to, it's just easy. Keeps your frame there instead of setting them, leaning them up against the hive on the ground. One important thing, guys, is top feeders. I got 3 varieties here. This one I think is the best top feeder because it allows you to put 1.5 gallons or more feed in there at a time. And that screen there, they feed underneath that screen. They can't sting you. So you can feed your bees. You don't have to get your bee uniform on and everything. So it makes it easier to check. You feed them fewer times. And it's just a much better product, I think, if you got a busy life. Now, if you have nothing to do and all day to do it, and you like to hang around your bees, that's perfect. You can do the smaller ones. But sometimes this is good because if they run out of feed when you first get your bees, they'll starve. So this to me, this saves a lot of bees. Then I call them frame feeders. And basically division board feeders, you put this inside, it replaces the frame. They crawl down that little hole. And then you got the Boardman feeder, which a jar sets in here and they suck through those holes and you put it on the outside of the hive. But they can suck that jar down in the afternoon. So unless you got a lot of time with your bees, that works. This is a very good feeder, but I wouldn't use it. Let me see. This tells you about Honeybee Society. I just wanted to show you. Shows you how the comb is. Over here's the life cycle of a bee. Here shows the skeps they used to be in. Here's the Langstroth, currently what we use today. And then down here just tells you a little about honey and the comb. They kind of a cute little picture. Okay, I'll go real fast with extracting tools. You got buckets, you got extractors, you got decapping. If you're going to extract your honey, basically you got a little set of tools you need to efficiently do it. Let me see, how am I running on time, guys? Okay, I'm gonna hurry through this. This is a chemical we use. You spray it on this lid, and it stinks. It smells like vomit, and the bees are real sensitive to that. It drives the bees out, and you can remove it. Some folks use Mr. Blower. They turn them into little bullets. So this is real popular. Bees don't seem to mind. Notice how you shoot the bees straight out instead of in the dirt. So if you're going to use a blower to remove the bees, it's like they're in a tornado. do it and make sure that you shoot them in the air, not down, and you can remove the bees from the super so you can extract it. Here's a brush. Some folks just take a frame out, brush the bees off, and then stick, and they take the bees off that way, a real gentle brush. Here's a big escape. That hole in that inner cover, this is basically a plastic piece that go in this hole and it can't come back. There's a picture of it there. So you take your inner cover, you put it underneath your supers, your honey. Every night, the bees like to go down and see mommy, the queen. They'll go through the hole, and then they can't come back up to the super. You only leave it off for 48 hours, boom, your supers will be 99% bee-free. Here's an extractor. This is a tangent. This is a good extractor, except you have to flip the frames because it only does one side at a time. Here's a radial. It's good because it gets the honey from both sides, so it's really quick. Here's a commercials. They'll do thousands of frames, and they spin them the other way. When we spin them like a washing machine, they kind of spin them the other direction. It relieves a wobbling effect, but I'm just showing you that. Here's what your honey looks like when it's ready to harvest. Not all of the cells will be capped in a lot of cases. Some it will, but some it won't. But that, you can test it, and usually that doesn't make that much of a difference. And here it is, you extract it, it's coming out of the extractor into the strainer. These are the best strainers to use. This is the double Seive. It's got the big holes and then the little holes in the bottom. And so it's really good. This is the easiest. It goes on your 5-gallon bucket, you're good to go. We also have the net ones, but they tend to plug up faster. And one thing, guys, if you're going to extract honey, there's a lot of expensive equipment, but this is about a $6 to $8 tool you should get. It's called a decapping tool. And basically you take it down here and see how you pop off the caps with it. You just go underneath it, just underneath and slide and you pop them off. Really good tool. Everyone needs this no matter what. And they're really fast. Come here, you got the knife. The hot knives, those can run quite a bit, 100, 150. And see how he's cutting underneath it? They work good too, but if you only got a Hive or two and you're new, I just use that decapping tool. Here it is going downward with it. There's a lot of ways to use a hot knife, but see how it just peels it off. So they're really fast and efficient. And here's comb honey, guys. Everyone wants to have comb honey. And basically it gets in a frame, he's cutting it out and he's letting it set overnight on this, well, I usually use queen excluders, because once you cut around these edges, if you put this in a container, like a clamshell or something, it'll be floating in a boat because you got a lot of honey dripping. So you let it drip overnight. And here's the important thing, guys. If you do this, you keep it in a freezer. That's where you store it and that's where you keep it. Because the bees aren't there to protect it. And you can talk to some other beekeepers about this. They will tell you. I've had a lot of folks not put it in a freezer. They let set it in the garage or set it in their basement. Then they had to give it back to the bees because it had problems. And that's a whole new presentation. I'll let someone else tell you about that. But if you want comb honey, keep it in the freezer. Here's the boxes we used to put them in a long time ago, Aspen boxes. Now, one thing you do, people say check your honey, and it's supposed to be 18% moisture. And here's a refractor you use. And guys, if you pull your honey and you want someone to test it, at our shop, we test it for you. We got refractors. We'll go out there, we'll test it, we'll tell you what your honey is. So we don't mind doing that. These run about $75, but most of the time, if your honey's capped, you're okay, but it's always good to test it or talk to one of these beekeepers. You probably have some extraction stuff coming up. They'll tell you all about it. Hey, and just to let you guys know, finish up, our website's beekeepers.com. And folks ask me how I got that. And I said, well, if you're as old as me, you remember when the internet wasn't here. So that's basically how it happened. And when you guys are attending this, it's very good for you guys to do this because so many folks come to us, they buy packaged bees and they look at us and they say, what do I do now? Or I was going to buy some equipment. I don't have anything. And I just gave them some bee packages. So I want to congratulate all of you for going to this meeting and be active with this club, because this is a great organization and they will help you out. And if they don't know, they will direct you to someone who does. And it's just good to have that support, especially when you're new. Once you get a couple of years under your belt, you'll be okay. And we're offering 15% off everything. If you go to our website, you can buy everything there. And that's really, we don't really have discounts like that. That's pretty good. But we figured if you guys are new and you're going through the time and effort to learn to be a beekeeper, not a bee haver, then that's excellent. And I want to say thanks. I'm sorry I ran a little over, guys, but Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, there's a couple of questions there.
Yep.
One of them had to ask for the type of paint. I answered that basically. A good latex paint always works pretty good. Would you agree?
What's paint you exterior your house?
Yeah, and I recommend to go to a paint shop where they've got some mismatched paint, where there's an error, like they'll sell it a lot cheaper.
Now make sure it's exterior, not interior.
Yeah. There was a question, do you have a 5-inch hole available? I guess that means for the reducer.
Oh yeah. Most of my reducers have 2. Yeah, I just that 1 inch, because guys, whenever you hear, we have folks in our shop every day, and they'll come in, and I hear all these horror stories, and what it does, it makes me more paranoid. And so so when I teach or when I talk to you guys, because I teach beekeeping at Johnson County Community College, I've been there 20 years. We got an apiary there. We've actually had a Midwestern come out that one extremely hot day, and they went through our bee yard, and we had a blast, except it was really hot. But yeah, I got the 5-inch, and it's got the 1 inch too. But the people that make this equipment sell it all over the country, all over the world. So they always have to have choices. But for here, guys, do the 5-inch. I won't get the call where, hey, all my bees are laying on a bottom board and they're not moving. What's wrong?
Okay, and there's one other question, I think. What's better, a painted hive or an all wax coated?
Ah! Oh, wow, I love it. You're talking to an old beekeeper who likes his paint. So I'd say painted. But I'm extremely familiar with the wax coated. I think the paint's better, guys. I'll tell you something. They don't have to be white. They can be anything. I have seen folks, they have put endless hours painting their hives. I mean, each box had a story. I mean, it's pretty cool. Some fit together, some have stories. So do what you want. The bees don't care. But put a good paint that'll protect your woodware so you can keep it. And just to let you know, my supers I have, a lot of my supers, I've had them for almost 50 years. I built them when I was a kid. And they got all that wire in them and everything. And say, how'd you do that? Well, I took good care of them. Plus, supers you only put on like in May, take them off in August or September, or so they're not on that long. And if you keep good paint on them, you keep them forever. Now, my hive bodies, I don't have any of that. Tops, bottoms, all that's been gone. I mean, since I was a kid, because it's out 24/7. But if you take good care of your equipment, guys, it'll last forever. I mean, it will. So if you see if some equipment doesn't look the best, it's because I've been a bad beekeeper, haven't taken care of it. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Robbie. I think that's all the questions had there. There was a question about the presentations. I know we've got something. They want to know if they could get copies of them.
Not a problem.
Okay, we'll see about doing that.
Thanks.
Again, thank you. Next up, we have Lenora Woolsey. She's going to talk about smoking your bees and getting into the hive. So Lenora, are you ready? She was on earlier.